Good. I just got that going. Well, welcome everybody. This is Chuck Hansen, and very privileged to have our good friend and the master distributor and top income earner, John Haremza, with us today, this morning, this evening, whatever happened, whatever time zone you happen to be in. So like I said earlier, take some copious notes. John has been in the industry for as long as I have. I guess we're kind of neck and neck there, about 30 years or so. And so, you know, he's certainly seen it all, done it all, and probably knows more about this industry than most people. So pay close attention. We will have it recorded and have that available to everybody. So John, take it away, buddy.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Chuck, and great to be here this morning. I'm actually coming to you this morning from Los Angeles. Was actually in Los Angeles the last couple of days, meeting with some folks. My daughter lives out here, and I mean, one of the great things about this business is just the freedom, right? You can be anywhere, work with anybody, and it's just a fantastic business or industry. Chuck, I think I think you may have been involved a little bit longer than me, and maybe your total earnings might be a little bit more than mine. I know that you made money a lot faster than I did in the early days, and have had some huge home runs. And one of those icons, and one of the people that I've obviously learned a tremendous amount from as well. And one of the things I think I want to just talk a little bit about before I jump into my presentation is, this is a very basic and fundamental industry. And Chuck, I think you would agree to this, because I mean, you got started back in the NSA was your first company too, right? Was it? Yeah. And it's kind of funny, because if you look at the real, big leadership in the industry right now, they really spawned from NSA, from Herbalife, from New Skin. And those are, we're now the old timers in the industry, but yet I feel like we're almost doing the exact same thing we did 30 years ago. I mean, really, the fundamentals are the fundamentals are the fundamentals. And so we're going to talk a little bit about Mitch, when he invited me to do this morning, he asked me to talk a little bit about mindset. And so we're going to talk a little bit about mindset. Before I jump into that, though, I'm going to share with you a little bit of my background, my history, and why I'm excited about, Valentus. And for those of you that don't really know me or know my story, we've been talking a little bit about it already this morning, but I've been 30 years now in this industry. I came to the industry, with no business, no professional, no sales background whatsoever. I was a blue collar worker. Right out of high school, I went to work at a potato chip factory. Okay. And I have a learning disability. I have dyslexia. I have a difficult time reading and spelling, still struggle with it today. Back then, having to, leave the class to have tests read to me, or, the teacher trying to get me to read out loud in class. Anyway, it was really a humiliating experience. And as a result, I had no self-esteem, no self-confidence. I mean, literally was just tried to go through school, go through life, being invisible. I was very shy and introverted. And so right out of high school, I went to work at a factory that happened to make potato chips. And I think that's where my love of potato chips really began. Anyway, and the reason I want to share that with you is this, as you're, and I mean, there's people here who have probably been involved in the industry like Chuck and I have, and Mitch has, people that are very experienced. There's others here, I'm sure, on this morning that are, brand new to the industry, or maybe some of you that have dabbled in the industry but have never made any real big money. And you're asking yourself, can I do this? Can I do this? And I like to believe that I'm living proof that you can do this. Anyone can do this. What's so exciting about what we offer here is it doesn't matter where you live, what you do, what's your age, what's your education, what's your finances, your background, who you are, who I mean, nothing matters. The only thing that really matters is, number one, is that you recognize, right, where you are here with Valentus. And then number two is you take action. Okay. And, I'm going to go a few different directions here this morning because, most people in network marketing, I'm sure Chuck would agree to this, most people in network marketing, make their money in network marketing, in their second or their third experience, okay? And the reason for that is because most people's first experience is like mine or Chuck's, although Chuck made money, like mine or Chuck's, is we get involved in a company, that is in massive momentum, right? I mean, that was my first experience. I walked into my first conference, 25,000 people in it. My first weekly meeting, there were 1,000 people in it. I was blown away with what I witnessed and what I saw, right? And so you're just, overwhelmed with the industry, and you make some money. But then people want to go out and they say, I realized I'll never make the big money because I missed it. I missed the real growth. I got involved too late. And most second experience is they get involved in a startup company. And unfortunately, the success rate of startup companies are very small. I think 95+% of them, don't make it through their first year. And of those that do, only 2% make it 5 years. So the failure rate, the body count is very high. So they maybe started out in a large company, got sold on the concept, got sold on the industry, said, you know what, this is incredible, but if I could be at the beginning, right, that's where I could really make the money. But then they picked the wrong company. And the thing crashes and burns. And then if they happen to have any gas left in their tank, they may try to find a company that is about like Valentus, right? A company that has gone through that threshold of risk, right? The risk is over. We've gone to that first tipping point. And yet they come into it with some knowledge, with some experience. They recognize the value of where we are as a company. They take massive action and build during this sweet spot that we find ourselves in. And so they're positioning themselves for that massive growth. Okay. The thing is when there's a brand new person, if you're brand new, just entering, Valentus is your very first company, and and you don't want this, you want this to be your first and your last ever company. The thing is to recognize where we are. Recognize where we are and take full advantage of it. Because what happens when some people get involved in a company at the absolute right time, but it's their first company, they don't realize it. And they kind of play with it, and they don't take it serious. They don't really understand the value of timing. And by the time they really get it, they still missed it, right? And so then they end up maybe, jumping on that treadmill. So for those of you that have been around, have been involved in something else, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've probably, been a part of both of those types of companies, and and you recognize and you understand exactly what we have and where we are here at Valentus, and you're taking massive action. For those of you that are brand new, you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to make Valentus your one and only. Your one and only if you just really understand where we are as a company. And because every company tells you that timing is perfect. And I know you've probably heard me on other calls talk about this, but I'm just gonna touch on it again, because timing, I'm gonna back up one moment, because I believe, all of these companies, right, and/or opportunities are made up of 5 critical elements, right? The company, the product, the compensation plan, the timing, and the training and support. And if 2 or 3 of those critical elements are not in place, it doesn't matter how good you are or how hard you work, despite your best efforts, you're going to struggle. Okay. I mean, you could take me, you could take Chuck, you could put us in a company with 2 or 3 of those elements that are missing, and we're going to struggle. Right? It's when all 5 of the elements come together, like we have here in Valentus, where the magic happens and the fortunes are made. Right? And so we know and we understand that, and that's why we're taking such massive action, because we know what we have here. Right? And so, but one of those critical elements that is, all of the elements need to be in place, but the one that really is the magnifier, the one that is the timing. Right? And most people don't understand why timing actually works the way it works. And I really want you to understand this, because if you do, you won't be sleeping at night. right? You'll be getting up an hour earlier, staying up an hour later, making that extra phone call, doing whatever you can to maximize this incredible window that we find ourselves in here with Valentus. So here's an analogy to help you understand timing and why timing works the way it works. I'm going to use fishing. And I want you to imagine that I get you all excited about a brand new fishing spot. It's going to be unbelievable. And I mean, it's going to be crazy exciting and fun. And so, wow, you're like, that's fantastic. And we get out there and there's no fish biting and the weather's miserable. And you're just like, hey, this is not what I thought it was going to be. There's no fish biting. I'm cold. I just want to go home, right? That's like being involved in a startup company. Now, why is that? Because it's all based on what could happen, but there's nothing actually happening, right? It's the fish aren't biting. It's just like in a startup company. There's no income evidence. There's no product successes yet. There's no proof or evidence. So the body count, the failure rate is incredibly high. Okay. But when a company hits about 2 million a month in sales, that's that first tipping point, right? At 2 million a month, it's like the fish are starting to bite again, are starting to bite because there's income evidence. There's product successes. The 2 million a month, the company's got their act together. Tools are taking place to help and support you. And as the company grows, the fishing gets better and better and better. And when a company hits about 10 million a month in sales, it's like the fish are jumping in the boat. I mean, you can't hardly get your line in the water and you've got another fish. I mean, there's so much overwhelming evidence that the masses, I call it critical mass, the masses come in and the companies go vertical. That was my first experience. My first experience, I entered a company when the fish were jumping in the boat. Okay. I mean, it was a massive exposure. And then, when I realized that, because you can make money very fast, but here's where the real money is made, right? The real money is made in that sweet spot between 2 and 10 million. So you get a base in place, right? So when it hits that window where the fish are jumping in the boat, that window of critical mass, you're not standing there with one fishing pole like I was in my first company thinking, wow, this is unbelievable. No, you're driving the boat. Right? And you've got 1,000, you've got 5,000, you got 10,000 people fishing out of your boat. So the whole key is you're positioning yourself with a large team to be able to take advantage, to leverage that movement from small to big. Okay, folks, that is why timing works the way it works, if you understood that analogy. So we're sitting last month, right, just at $3 million a month in sales. We're not quite in the middle of that critical mass, or right in the middle of that incredible timing. So that's when I say, okay, if you really understand where we are, where we're going, what is happening right now, how you can change your life, how you can set yourself up for life, you'd be taking full advantage. That's where I'm talking about getting up an hour earlier, making that extra phone call, because every day you spend productive in Valentus right now is probably worth a week a year from now because of the compounding effect, of having a team in place when the thing really goes vertical. Okay, so that's that thought. So anyway, I realized this. I got involved in a company where the fish were jumping in the boat. I didn't know it. I just thought it was incredible. And then I realized I missed it from a timing standpoint, that I needed a consumable product. And then I found another company with a consumable product doing about 2 million a month, about 2 years old. And so perfect timing. Ended up spending the next 12 years there. And in that 12-year window, I earned about $4 million, and once again thought I was going to be there for life. And people are like, "What happened?" Well, what happened was the company got sold, and then it got sold for a second time, and I lost my belief, right? And at the end of the day, that is what network marketing is about. It is about belief. People buy people. It's your passion, it's your posture, it's your belief, your enthusiasm about what it is you're doing that attracts or influences others. I mean, I joke about it, that when I first got started, and when I would talk to people, I didn't know what I was talking about. Okay, and when I was done talking to people, they didn't know what I was talking about, but they wanted to join me, right? Because they could feel the energy, the sparkle in my eye, the spring in my step, the power and posture in the voice, because I saw something. I saw something. So, one of the first lessons I want to have you understand here this morning is how important your story is. Okay, how important belief is, right? I mean, from a story standpoint, and we'll talk a little bit more about, if you're out there telling the Valentus story, if you're out there sharing your story and you're not getting anyone interested, if you're not getting anyone's attention, you need to go back and evaluate your story, or you need to go back and look at your belief. You need to look at, how you're presenting that story, because it ain't working. As hot as we are right now, if you're telling the story, you should be getting results. And if you're not, you need to go back and evaluate your story, talk to your upline diamond, and hone in and create that really powerful story, right? Because again, I mean, I tell people, you learn everything you need to know about network marketing in kindergarten. It's called show and tell, right? We tell stories about our company, about our products, about what's happened to us and what's happened to others. So one of the, key point, timing, key point is getting your story down and that belief in place. And so there's just a couple of things. So I lost my belief and was still making a lot of money, kind of going through the motions. And then I had the opportunity to become a master distributor of a company, and ended up, startup day one. Very fortunate that we made it, right? Risk is incredibly high, but we actually made it. Ended up making over 12 years about $10 million with that company. Met Dave Jordan in that experience, the owner of Valentus, right? Dave Jordan was in my downline in that company. He was one of the top earners in that company. He lived in Grand Forks. I lived in Fargo. We had a great bond. He has dyslexia. I have dyslexia. We had a great bond, and there were some things that took place there where he got, very upset with the owner and what was happening. Matter of fact, that particular issue that went on, I lost my trust in the owner, but I was making a lot of money. But Dave left. We stayed in contact, and I got to the point with that company that I couldn't do it anymore because of belief, because of trust, and that's what led me to Valentus, right? And I can tell you that I believe Valentus is going to be the biggest thing I've ever done. Matter of fact, it's already become the biggest thing I've ever done from a monthly income standpoint. I mean, I never imagined that I would earn this type of income. When I entered this industry, 30 years ago, my goal was to make $3,000 a month, right? And then once I really got it and started figuring it out, my goal was, hey, if I could ever make $10,000 a month, right? Once I did that and could really understand, I could make $100,000 a month, and I was able to do that. And with what's happening right now, early this spring, I started thinking, I believe I could make $200,000 a month. And that has happened, right? And I can tell you, and Chuck has witnessed these big numbers before. You've been involved in these big numbers, but I actually, Chuck, and I see you smiling there, because I think that it's realistic to make $500,000 a month here with Valentus, and there's going to be people doing that, and I plan on being one of them. So, end story on that whole thing, guys. Understand where we are as a company, where we're going. Take massive action, because every day you spend in Valentus today is worth a week, maybe a month, a year from now, because of that compounding effect. So let's jump into my 7 keys to a winning mindset. At the end of the day, everything comes back to your mindset. Comes back to that statement that I talked about earlier, is people buy people, right? I mean, set yourself on fire, and you're going to attract people. And that all starts with your mindset. One of the philosophies that I had very early on in my career, didn't necessarily realize it, as I call it my small step philosophy. And what it really means is this, it means everything counts, okay? Regardless of how small or insignificant something is, at some decision you make is, understand that it has an impact on your life. I mean, every decision we make somehow affects our present situation. It affects our life, right? And I want to give you an example. When I was this maintenance person and I was introduced to this water filter company, NSA 30 years ago. I was invited out to a house to look at this. It was water filter. I thought they wanted me to build a display, right? Not sell. I was shy. I was introverted. Wouldn't even say hi to somebody. There was a breakdown at the factory that day. Ended up working a 12-hour day. You know, I get off work. I'm like, I don't want to go to this meeting that I was invited to, but I made the commitment, right? I made the commitment. I had to go. So I went. And that was my introduction to network marketing. Okay, so think about how small that decision was. I mean, that's the thing. We're all faced with so many decisions throughout the day. Some of them are small, some of them are big. Most of them are small. That was a small decision. Do I just, hey, I'm tired, I've had a 12-hour day. Do I just go home, right? And sink into the couch, relax, have some dinner, and do it again tomorrow, right? But I made this commitment and I went. And I was introduced to this network marketing industry. That little decision completely changed the course of my life, okay? But then think of the compounding effect of that decision. As a result of me going, as a result of me going to the meeting versus going home, being introduced to this industry and getting excited, then making the decision to actually do it and take action, literally, the compounding effect of that has literally affected probably tens of thousands of people as a result of me going to that meeting versus going home. So, I mean, little decisions, you being on this webinar, this Zoom this morning versus there's people that knew about this that aren't here, right? You know, maybe it's the decision to come to conference versus not come to conference. You know, maybe it's that decision, you know, when you're filling your car up with gas today and you have an impulse to talk to the person next to you, but you don't. Right? Or in the grocery store, you have somebody on your chicken list that you know you should call, but you don't. It's all of the little decisions, right? It's all of the little decisions that mount into making a major difference. So just want you to think about that, how important every decision you make. I mean, you know, I tell people, you know, because you meet these people, right? That everything seems to work for them. It's like they've got the magic touch. I mean, they just keep falling into it, right? I mean, everything just keeps to work for them. And then there's this other group of people that nothing seems to work for them, right? I mean, they keep stepping in it, right? I mean, they just keep stepping in it. Nothing seems to work out in their life. And I believe it comes down to the little decisions they make on a daily basis, okay? It's those little decisions that ultimately determine the outcome of your life. Okay. Now, you know, personal development, we're going to talk about this in a moment, but personal development has had probably the bigger impact on me than anything else, you know, in my entire life. Personal development, getting involved in personal development, what I've learned through personal development. Somebody out there is off mute. I hear some thrashing. Let me see if I can figure out who that is.
I'll do it. You can go right ahead.
Okay. Okay. So, again, talking about personal development and you know, it is so important. It helps you understand philosophy of success. It helps you with your mindset. It's absolutely one of the most important things there is mindset. So, you know, Earl Nightingale, one of my people I just, you know, fell in love with, a set of tapes called The Strangest Secret. And the strangest secret is this. He says, you are what you think about, right? I mean, we've all heard the saying, you know, if you think you can, you can. If you think you can't, you can't. You're right either way. But folks, literally how true that is. What we think about, the difference that it makes in our life, the things that we think about. And Earl Nightingale told a story that really drove it home. It's like, I got it, right? And he told a story, and he says, your mind is like a farmer's land. And he says, your mind, like the farmer's land, doesn't care what you plant. It'll return whatever you plant, right? And he says, so you take a farmer's land, and he says, you dig two little holes. And in one hole, you plant corn. And in the other hole, you plant nightshade. And nightshade is a deadly poison. And he says, you water and you take care of the land will return that nightshade as easily as it will return the corn. Okay. And that nightshade being negativity, that nightshade being, it's poison. It kills people's dreams. And it's really comes down to whatever you're focused on, right? Whatever you're focused on becomes your life, becomes your reality. Are you watering the nightshade or are you watering the corn, right? Because it lives in all of us. Negativity, and it lives in all of us. I mean, most people, their life is full of stress and anxiety and frustration and worry. And what they do is they just focus on it, and it just, propels them further deeper into the ditch, right? Where if you can focus on positivity, if you can focus on possibilities, if you can focus on this can really change my life, if you can focus on the positives, you just get more positives. It's again, coming back to this analogy of the farmer's land. Okay, it's what are you watering? What are you watering? Are you watering the corn, which would be the positivity, where you want to go? Or are you watering the nightshade, which is the negativity, and where you may be at, and what's all gone wrong in your life? And you just compound and you draw that to it. So how do you do that? The key that he says is you've got to be very, very conscious. You've got to be conscious of your thoughts. Right. And you've all been around people that have been negative, right? We've all been around people in negative. And I kind of joke about it. I say there's two types of people in this world. Those that brighten a room when they come in and those that brighten a room when they leave. Right. I mean, negativity, just, you don't want to be around it. And the other thing about negativity, I say this, misery loves company. Right? Because, so you got to be conscious. If you're in that or headed in that or you're struggling in that area, you've got to make a conscious decision to change what you're thinking about. Now, how I found best to do that is personal development. I've had, difficult times, dark times in my life, and what's helped me through it is this industry. What's helped me through it is getting involved in personal development, pouring all of the good stuff in, which is like nightshade killer, right? Negative killer. It gets you focused on the right activities. The other thing that really made sense to me, that I want you to think about is the difference between the conscious and the subconscious mind. And the thing about it is your conscious mind, you're very conscious of it, right? You know what you're thinking about, right? Your subconscious mind only knows what your conscious mind feeds it. Okay. And your conscious mind your subconscious mind doesn't know right from wrong, good from bad, positive from negative. The only thing the subconscious mind knows is what the conscious mind feeds it. Right. So what are you thinking about? Knowing that that's feeding your subconscious, because your subconscious works 24/7. Doesn't know the difference between right or wrong, good or bad, positive, negative. All it knows is what you're thinking about, feeding the subconscious, and it goes to work on it 24/7. What are you thinking about when you go to bed at night? Right? Are you thinking about, oh my God, I can't pay my bills? Oh my God, I hate my job. I don't think this will ever work for me. Are you going to bed thinking about, this is incredible, I'm going to change my life? I'm so grateful and fortunate. See, what you think about when you go to bed at night, right? Like last night, for instance, we all have our phones, we have stuff on. Last night, I go to bed on autoplay and I'm listening to Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. Played all night long. And I do that 10, 15 nights a month, right? It's so important, because that, you're constantly fighting negativity is all around us. So you have to take and make a conscious effort to be conscious of your thoughts, of what it is. Are those thoughts tearing you down, or are those thoughts building you up? Right? Because they're feeding your subconscious, they're going to work on your subconscious mind, and they become reality. You begin to manifest that. So again, something that when I learned it, I really got it, and just how important our conscious thoughts are, because again, they're feeding our subconscious. This is all part of it as well. It's your attitude. If you're thinking of stinking, your business is shrinking. But the same is true when you're excited, and when you're just fired up. You attract people to you, right? You attract people when you see opportunity, when you fire, you attract people. But when you're the other side of it, Earl Nightingale, I think it was Earl Nightingale, and he tells this story. He says, I'll use me as an example. He says, well, John, if I was making that kind of money, I'd have a great attitude too. And Earl Nightingale says the attitude came first. The money is as a result of the great attitude, right? The attitude doesn't come as a result of the money. The money comes as a result of a great attitude. So again, it's all tied to your mindset. It's all tied to what it is you're focused on, right? I see it all the time. I see people that, this happens to their business. This person quits, they're frustrated about this, and then they just dwell on it. They just focus on it. And guess what? Things get worse, right? Things get worse. But if you focus on, growing and positive, and hey, I hate that guy left, but you know what? He's missing out, right? So what you're focused on makes a big difference. What is your focus on is another way of saying, what are you thinking about, right? So don't be so, I just keep repeating myself, but folks, it's so true. Be conscious of your conscious thoughts, because it's feeding that subconscious, it's manifesting itself. This is another great statement. I love this. You're either buying or you're selling. Every time you talk to somebody, you're either buying or you're selling. And what I mean by that is somebody's either buying your story about how great something is, or they're selling their story about how great their thing is. And if you end up buying their story, it's whoever has the greatest level of belief is going to have influence over the other. So are you buying or are you selling? Are you selling your story, or you're buying somebody else's story about why it doesn't work, right? Whoever has think about this. Every time you communicate or talk with somebody, you're either buying or selling. You're selling your story or buying their story, right? And whoever has the greatest level of belief and confidence in what they're doing is going to have influence. It's going to get that other person starting to question, wow, you know what? Maybe what I'm doing isn't going to work. Maybe I do need to look at what you're doing. Right? Somebody approaches me. I get approached all the time, Chuck. I'm sure you do too, about other businesses. And I cut them off right there. I just say, look, I have no interest in what it is you're doing. Okay. But you do need to look at what I'm doing. Right? Because if you get into this, oh, sure, I'll look at what you're doing. If you look at what I'm doing, that's a losing battle, right? The whole time, they're telling you what they're doing. All you're doing is thinking about what you're going to tell them. Okay, but if you want to really have influence on that person trying to get you to look at something else, you just say, I'm going to stop you right there. I have no interest in looking at what you're doing. Okay, I'm 1,000% locked in. I have the deal, right? I am in the biggest thing I've ever done. You need to look at what I'm doing, folks. Very, very strong how the impact. So this whole idea of mindset, what we focus on. How do you stay in the right direction? How do you keep it with all the nightshade that's within us that's always trying to creep up and kill the corn and kill us? Number one thing is personal development. Stay plugged into personal development. Listen to it. I drove from Las Vegas to Los Angeles yesterday, or not yesterday, the day before. And what did I do? I didn't listen to the radio. I was listening to personal development, sharpening the saw, right? Learning and refreshing myself on all this stuff. Maybe it's books if you're a reader, or audios. That's what I love. Videos, Zooms like we have here today, the conference calls, whether it's your team doing one or the company doing it. The events, the conference, right? Hey, you come to this conference, no nightshade can exist, right? It's going to wipe out all the weeds. It's going to wipe out all the weeds in your head, and your crop's going to thrive, right? So, and that comes back to that other thing I talked earlier about, which is little decisions, right? You may have made a decision. I can't make it to the conference, right? You know what? Change that decision. I can make it to the conference. Where there's a will, there's a way. I have heard unbelievable. Success leaves clues. I'm 30 years in this industry, Chuck. I'm sure you could say this exact same thing. We don't miss events. We don't miss conferences. These things are key. Okay. What do I got here? It says, the goals. This is another important thing to write down, really clarify. The key is not to be overwhelming yourself with the goal. Just keep it. I think the biggest challenge that people have in writing goals is they just don't know what to put down. All these goal setting programs are so incredibly complicated. I mean, really all it comes down to is what, when, how, and why. What do I want? When do I want it? How am I going to get it? And why? And really focusing on that why. Thinking about what your life would be like when you accomplish what your goal is, and then put it in writing. And then here's the key to the whole goal. Here's the key to that. It's daily cultivation. Okay, daily cultivation. See, every time, if you review it every morning, you have it on a Post-it card, you have it on your screensaver, you have it on your mirror, whatever. So just, you have it and you review it every morning, you review it every night. Every time you do it, it keeps it top of mind. It's once again planting it in your subconscious, but that daily cultivation stimulates that emotion that you had when you originally got excited about that goal and said, I'm going to do this and this is why I want to do it. It stimulates that emotion. You feel it again, and you feel it in your heart. You see it in your mind's eye, and that's what, that it begins to manifest itself, right? So daily cultivation and visualizing it, is so key. Okay. Again, this is kind of a little bit of repeat. Jim Rohn, I mean, this is one of those statements that I just, got it, right? I mean, work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Work on yourself, you make a fortune. Work on your job, you make a living. I mean, once I got that, turned my life around. Jim Rohn is my very favorite. I mean, I love Earl Nightingale, Zig Ziglar. I mean, there's hundreds of these guys out there that are excellent. Who you find that you really click with and really identify with, Jim Rohn is my go-to all the time. There's a set of tapes that he has called Art of Exceptional Living. Pure gold. Every word in this thing, pure gold. Unbelievable philosophy. You can change. You can map your whole life around. Challenge to Succeed, another one. And then he actually does a CD on network marketing. It's 45 minutes long, called Why Network Marketing. For those of you that are going to be at the conference, I'm sure they'll be available there. This is another thing that that I do all the time. Is I call it a personal checkup, right? Is I'm always asking myself, how am I doing, right? What do I need to do better? What do I need to, what am I doing well, right? I mean, and going through the fundamentals of our business. Okay, hey, how am I doing with my mindset, right? Do I need to improve it? How am I doing with my personal prospecting? I mean, don't ever forget what we get paid for, right? We get paid to talk to people. Talk to people that are not yet involved in our business. Talk to people that are not yet using our products. When you want to ask yourself, it's the only thing that's going to grow our business is new people. It's prospecting, right? And so, asking yourself, hey, how am I doing on prospecting, right? Am I talking about it? Am I actually doing it, right? And so, how am I doing with my follow-up, right? I'm prospecting, but then am I following up? We've all heard the saying, fortune's in the follow-up. So, yeah, I'm talking to people, but then I drop the ball because I don't follow up on a timely basis. So how am I doing on my follow-up? How am I doing, with the example that I'm setting, right? Because everything we do, right, sets an example what others think they have to do. They're going to pick up your good habits or your bad habits, right? If you're not prospecting, guess what? Your team's not going to prospect, right? If you're not doing the follow-up, your team's not. If you're not, on the conference call, so asking yourself the question, how am I doing as far as staying plugged in? Am I on the conference calls, right? Because, and I'll find people say, well, John, I'm so self-motivated, I don't need the calls. And that is fantastic for you. But you're rare. Most people do need the calls. And here's the thing. If you're not on them, they're not going to be on them. So you need to be on them for them, not you, right? So you need to be on them to set the example, to show that they're important. So, it's just, having that personal checkup. If you go through our success manual, there's a whole list, there's a page there about things to, asking yourself, how am I doing on the 3-way phone calls, You know, how am I doing? How am I doing? How am I doing? Where can I improve? You know, this is another big one, and that is taking responsibility. Don't let yourself fall into being this victim, this poor me, or this having an entitlement mentality. Because here's the thing that I know is life isn't fair, right? I mean, life isn't fair. I mean, bad things happen to good people. And Jim Rohn talks about what happens to us all. It's what do you do about it, right? I mean, two people, identical circumstances, something happens that isn't fair, right? Because I promise you there'll be things happen that aren't fair in life and in our business. There's going to be things happen that aren't fair. And so, are you going to, at that point when that happens, then it becomes, what do you do about it? Do you dwell on it? Do you focus on it, manifest it into something worse? Or you say, okay, this happened. I didn't like it. It wasn't fair. Maybe it shouldn't have happened. Maybe, things aren't, whatever it is, what determines how it's going to affect your life, how it's going to affect your business is what you do about it. Some people, dwell on it, and I've seen this happen over and over and over again. Something happens that isn't fair. Something happens that shouldn't have happened, right? Something isn't perfect, and they just dwell on it, and it destroys them, versus, okay, hey, this happened, now what am I going to do about it, right? So it's not what happens. What happens to us all. It's what you do about it that makes a difference. So don't get into this blame mode. Don't get into this victim, this poor me. Take responsibility. And, I tell people, these are, three very important words. I am responsible. It doesn't matter. Somebody says, yeah, I mean, you might be saying, hey, I take responsibility for where I'm at in my life. I take responsibility for everything. But then what happens is you put a but in there, right? You say, I'm responsible, but, this happened, right? I'm responsible, but, this shouldn't have happened. You see, until you get rid of that but, your things are just you're not taking full responsibility. Because again, it comes back, what happens to us all. It's on what you do about it. Time management. This is kind of an interesting statistic. Harvard University, they did a study, and I think it was the class of 1973, and they found that 78% of people, needed oral or written instruction. To do something. And keep in mind, we're involved, we're self-employed, right? We don't have somebody telling us what to do. This is your own business. We're dealing with a volunteer army. I love this quote by Robert Kiyosaki. He says, the difference between a rich man and a poor man is how they spend their time. I mean, isn't that powerful, right? The difference between a rich man and a poor man is how they spend their time. So here's some tips on time management. Put your day on paper before it starts, kind of know what you want to do. Have you ever felt overwhelmed where you got all this going on in your head and you're feeling overwhelmed? Put it down and put it down in writing and prioritize it, and you'll probably never be wrong again. So very, 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 very important. Whoops, what happened here? This good time management. Understand what the difference between paid time and no paid time is. And what our most important thing is always talking to people. But if you feel overwhelmed, just take and write it down on a piece of paper. It's like a ton of bricks being lifted off of you, right? Prioritize the things that you have to get done. And remember what the most important priority thing is. Do that first. Makes the rest of the day go easy. Have this DMO. This is an easy way to just get very fundamental, just have a DMO, have a daily method of operation, a set of activities that become so natural, so routine to you, it's like brushing your teeth or bathing. It's just something you do, right? I mean, share the product and opportunity at every chance you get. Following up on a timely basis, supporting your people, investing in yourself through personal development, using the products. Whatever that half a dozen things, Jim Rohn talks about that. He says, almost everything in life can be broken down to about a half a dozen things. Sure, there's hundreds of things we could be doing, but he says, but most of the success comes from about a half a dozen activities. Figure out what those half a dozen activities are for you and focus on them. Create that routine, that daily method of operation. This is also important. And this is a relationship business. I always say our job is to keep people in one more day. You keep people in one more day, you might keep them a lifetime, right? And so, and this kind of has a two ends to it, right? Because one of our biggest mistakes we can make is we spend time with the wrong people, right? And so you don't want to waste time with people. You want to match energy with energy, but you don't want to, disrespect somebody or just, kick them out of your business, right? Everybody counts, right? Just even if you're not spending a lot of time with them, you can still let them know that you care. It's how you treat people. It's how you make them feel. People want to be valued and appreciated and heard. And maybe they're not ready to take massive action right now, but tomorrow they may be, because they lose their job or something happens in their life, or they get it. They finally get it. So, keep them in one more day. Think about how you're treating people, not just the leaders, but all the people. And then that last thing is consistency. If I am known for anything, I'm not a fancy person. There's nothing great about anything that I do, but I can tell you what I am is I'm consistent. I just keep stepping up to the plate, right? And I stay consistent. Think about that example that you're setting, because that example is you want to be doing the things that you want your team to be doing. So all these things I've just talked about reality of it is they're all fundamental, they're all basic, they're all easy to do, right? But they're also easy not to do, right? If I could say, as it has for me, personal development absolutely changed my life, and it was fun. It was really easy to do, listen to it a little bit in the morning when you're going to bed, in the car, wherever it is, but it's also easy not to do. Right? It's easy to turn the TV on. It's easy to turn the radio on. It's easy to not do it. What's easy to do is also easy not to do. So in closing here, just, folks, get focused, be conscious of what you're focused on, because that focus, not what you think you're focused on, not what you talk about, but what you're actually doing. What are you actually doing? What is your predominant thoughts? What are you really focused on, right? And staying consistent. So with that, guys, that's our training here for this morning. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this screen share here. Okay. So I hope you guys got some good stuff out of that, and I'm appreciate everybody, and hope to see you all at our upcoming event. I'm sure many of you listening in are going to be there, and so looking forward to it. It's going to be a great week next week.
Well, John, that was absolutely fantastic, and you're right, buddy. It's the things that we're teaching now, we were teaching 30 years ago. And really nothing has changed. Just the people have changed, the company has changed, and a few other things have changed, like technology and those kind of things, right? You and I both got started before the internet, before cell phones, before a fax machine, before, and people say, well, what did you do? Well, we had paper applications and we got them to the company, as best we could. So, yeah, fantastic information, buddy. And, I know where your income's going. I know where my income is going. I know where Rick Gerald's income is going. I know wherever, I put something out to everybody, and I said, the only reason you'll fail in Valentus is if you do nothing. If you do nothing, you're going to fail. But if you just do and get engaged, then other things are going to happen around you. And I love the analogy of fish jumping in the boat. I've been there when those fish just jump in the boat, and I try to tell people now is easy. Recruit while it's easy, right? Nobody knows about this deal. Nobody knows about it. Even networkers that have been around 10, 20, 30 years don't know about it. But that's all going to change because of results, product results, income results, income stories, product stories, all of those things. And you're absolutely right. And yes, you will see me. You'll see me at all the conferences, obviously, except for the ones that I can't get to because of a hurricane. But next time I'll leave earlier, right? So, John, it's always a pleasure. Come and stop by anytime, and we'll see you Wednesday.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, Chuck, and thanks, everyone. We'll see you all soon. Bye now.
Real good. Thanks, buddy. Hey, guys, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. We've just got to be constantly reminded of the things that some of us have already forgotten. And so it was great information for me. I hope it was great information for you. We'll get this thing up and posted. So with that, enjoy the rest of your day. There's a lot of recruiting, a lot of follow-up that needs to be done, I'm sure. So if I can be of any assistance to anybody, I'll be around all day. You guys got my cell phone number, and I might be out and about, but certainly willing and able to do and help with anything. So with that, I'm going to stop the recording.